Near the house, he put in a gasoline filling station. He built a dozen single-room log houses along the road. Those he rented out to tourists at $3 a night each. The dining room, gasoline filling station, and log houses brought him a net income of $15,000 the first year. The next year, he extended his plans by adding 50 more log houses of 3 rooms each, which he now rents out as summer country homes to people in nearby city at a rental of $150 each for the season. The building material cost him nothing, for it grew on his land in abundance, the same land which the college professor believed to be worthless. Moreover, the unique and unusual appearance of the log bungalows served as an advertisement of the plan, whereas many would have considered it a real calamity had they been compelled to build out of such crude materials. Less than 5 miles from the location of these log houses, this same man purchased an old worked-out farm of 150 acres for $25 an acre, a price which the seller believed to be extremely high. By building a dam 100 feet in length, the purchaser of this old farm turned a stream of water into a lake that covered 15 acres of that land, stocked the lake with fish, then sold the farm off in building lots to people who wanted summering places around the lake. The total profit realized from this simple transaction was more than $25,000, and the time required for its consummation was just 1 summer. Yet this man of vision and imagination was not educated in the orthodox meaning of that term. Let us keep in mind the fact that it is through these simple illustrations of the use of organized knowledge that one may become educated and powerful. In speaking of the transaction here related, the college president who sold 50 acres of worthless land for $500 said, "Just think of it, that man, who most of us might call ignorant, mixed his ignorance with 50 acres of worthless land and made the combination yield more yearly than I earned from 5 years of application of so-called education." There is an opportunity, if not scores of them, in every state in America to make use of the idea here described. From now on, make it your business to study the lay of all land you see that is similar to that described in this lesson, and you may find a suitable place for developing a similar money-making enterprise. The idea is particularly adaptable in localities where bathing beaches are few, as people naturally like such conveniences. The automobile has caused a great system of public highways to be built throughout the United States. On practically every one of these highways, there is a suitable spot for a cabin city for tourists, which can be turned into a regular money-making mint by the man with the imagination and self-confidence to do it. There are opportunities to make money all around you. This course was designed to help you see these opportunities and to inform you how to make the most of them after you discover them. Who can profit most by the law of success philosophy? Railroad officials who want a better spirit of cooperation between their trained men and the public they serve. Salaried people who wish to increase their earning power and market their services to better advantage. Salespeople who wish to become masters in their chosen field. The law of success philosophy covers every known law of selling and includes many features not included in any other course. Industrial plant managers who understand the value of greater harmony among their employees. Railroad employees who wish to establish records of efficiency which will lead to more responsible positions with greater pay. Merchants who wish to extend their business by adding new customers. The law of success philosophy will help any merchant increase his business by teaching him how to make a walking advertisement of every customer who comes into his store. Automobile agents who wish to increase the selling power of their salesmen. A large part of the Law of Success course was developed from the life, work, and experience of the greatest automobile salesman living, and it is therefore of unusual help to the sales manager who is directing the efforts of automobile salesmen. Life insurance agents who wish to add new policyholders and increase the insurance on present policyholders. One life insurance salesman in Ohio sold a $50,000 policy to one of the officials of the Central Steel Company. As the result of but one reading of the lesson on profiting by failures, this same salesman has become one of the star men of the New York Life Insurance Company's staff as the result of his training in the 15 Laws of Success. School teachers who wish to advance to the top in their present occupation, or who are looking for an opportunity to enter the more profitable field of business as a life work. Students, both college and high school, who are undecided as to what field of endeavor they wish to enter as life work. The Law of Success course covers a complete personal analysis service which helps the student of the philosophy to determine the work for which he or she is best fitted. Bankers who wish to extend their business through better and more courteous methods of servicing their clients. Bank clerks who are ambitious to prepare themselves for executive positions in the field of banking or in some commercial or industrial field. Physicians and dentists who wish to extend their practice without violating the ethics of their profession by direct advertising. A prominent physician has said that the Law of Success course is worth thousands of dollars to any professional man or woman whose professional ethics prevent direct advertising. Promoters who wish to develop new and hitherto unworked combinations in business or industry. The principle described in this introductory lesson is said to have made a small fortune for a man who used it as the basis of a real estate promotion. Real estate men who wish new methods for promoting sales. This introductory lesson contains a description of an entirely new real estate promotion plan, which is sure to make fortunes for many who will put it to use. This plan may be put into operation into practically every state. Moreover, it may be employed by men who never promoted an enterprise. Farmers who wish to discover new methods of marketing their products so as to give them greater net returns, and those who own land suitable for subdivision promotion under the plan referred to at the end of this introductory lesson. Thousands of farmers have gold mines in the land they own which is not suitable for cultivation, which could be used for recreation and resort purposes on a highly profitable basis. Stenographers and bookkeepers who are looking for a practical plan to promote themselves into higher and better paying positions. The Law of Success course is said to be the best course ever written on the subject of marketing personal services. Printers who want a larger volume of business and more efficient production as the result of better cooperation among their own employees. Day laborers who have the ambition to advance into more responsible positions in work that has greater responsibilities and consequently offers more and better pay. Lawyers who wish to extend their clientele through dignified, ethical methods which will bring them to the attention in a favorable way of a greater number of people who need legal services. Business executives who wish to expand their present business or who wish to handle their present volume with less expense as a result of greater cooperation between their employees. Laundry owners who wish to extend their business by teaching their drivers how to serve more courteously and efficiently. Life insurance general agents who wish bigger and more efficient sales organizations. Chain store managers who want a greater volume of business as a result of more efficient individual sales efforts. Married people who are unhappy and therefore unsuccessful because of lack of harmony and cooperation in the home. To all described in the foregoing classification, the Law of Success philosophy offers both definite and speedy aid. Summary of introductory lesson. The purpose of this summary is to aid the student in mastering the central idea around which the lesson has been developed. This idea is represented by the term Mastermind, which has been described in great detail throughout this lesson. All new ideas, and especially those of an abstract nature, find lodgment in the human mind only after much repetition. A well-known truth which accounts for the restatement in this summary of the principle known as the mastermind. A mastermind may be developed by a friendly alliance in the spirit of harmony of purpose between two or more minds. This is an appropriate place at which to explain that out of every alliance of minds, whether in a spirit of harmony or not, there is developed another mind which affects all participating in the alliance. No two or more minds ever met without creating, out of the contact, another mind, but not always in this invisible creation a mastermind. There may be, and altogether too often there is, developed out of the meeting of two or more minds a negative power, which is just the opposite to a mastermind. There are certain minds which, as has already been stated throughout this lesson, cannot be made to blend in the spirit of harmony. This principle has its comparable analogy in chemistry, reference to which may enable the student to grasp more clearly the principle here referred to. For example, the chemical formula H2O, meaning the combining of two atoms of hydrogen with one atom of oxygen, changes these two elements into water. One atom of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen will not produce water. Moreover, they cannot be made to associate themselves in harmony. There are many known elements which, when combined, are immediately transformed from harmless into deadly, poisonous substances. Stated differently, many will know poisonous elements are neutralized and rendered harmless when combined with certain other elements. Just as the combining of certain elements changes their entire nature, the combining of certain minds changes the nature of those minds, producing either a certain degree of what has been called a mastermind, or its opposite, which is highly destructive. Any man who has found his mother-in-law to be incompatible has experienced the negative application of the principle known as a mastermind. For some reason, as yet unknown to investigators in the field of mind behavior, the majority of mother-in-law appear to affect their daughter husbands in a highly negative manner, the meeting of their minds with those of their son-in-laws, creating a highly antagonistic influence instead of a mastermind. This fact is too well known as a truth to make extended comment necessary. Some minds will not be harmonized and cannot be blended into a mastermind, a fact which all leaders of men will do well to remember. It is the leader's responsibility so to group his men that those who have been placed at the most strategic points in his organization are made up of individuals whose minds can and will be blended in a spirit of friendliness and harmony. Ability so to group men is the chief outstanding quality of leadership. In Lesson 2 of this course, the student will discover that his ability was the main source of both the power and fortune accumulated by the late Andrew Carnegie. Knowing nothing whatsoever of the technical end of the steel business, Carnegie so combined and grouped the men of which his mastermind was composed that he built the most successful steel industry known to the world during his lifetime. Henry Ford's gigantic success may be traced to the successful application of this self-same principle. With all the self-reliance a man could have, Ford nevertheless did not depend upon himself for the knowledge necessary in the successful development of his industry. Like Carnegie, he surrounded himself with men who supplied the knowledge which he himself did not and could not possess. Moreover, Ford picked men who could and did harmonize in group effort. The most effective alliances which have resulted in the creation of the principle known as the mastermind have been those developed out of the blending of the minds of men and women. The reason for this is the fact that the minds of male and female will more readily blend in harmony than will the minds of males. Also, the added stimulus of sexual contact often enters into the development of a mastermind between a man and a woman. It is a well-known fact that the male of the species is keener and more alert for the chase, let the goal or object of the chase be what it may, when inspired and urged on by a female. This human trait begins to manifest itself in the male at the age of puberty and continues throughout his life. The first evidence may be observed in athletes, where boys are playing before an audience made up of females. Remove the woman from the audience and the game known as football would soon become a very tame affair. A boy will throw himself into a football game with almost superhuman effort when he knows that a girl of his choice is observing him from the grandstand. And that same boy will throw himself into the game of accumulating money with the same enthusiasm when inspired and urged on by a woman of his choice, especially if that woman knows how to stimulate his mind with her own through the law of the mastermind. On the other hand, that same woman may, through a negative application of the law of mastermind, nagging, jealousy, selfishness, greed, and vanity, drag this man down to sure defeat. The late Elbert Hubbard understood the principle here described so well that when he discovered that the incompatibility between himself and his first wife was dragging him down to sure defeat, he ran the gamut of public opinion by divorcing her and marrying the woman who was said to have been the main source of his inspiration. Not every man would have had the courage to defy public opinion as Hubbard did, but who is wise enough to say that his action was not for the best interest of all concerned? A man's chief business in life is to succeed. The road to success may be, and generally is, obstructed by many influences which must be removed before the goal can be reached. One of the most detrimental of these obstacles is that of unfortunate alliance with minds which do not harmonize. In such cases, the alliance must be broken, or the end is sure to be defeat and failure. The man who has mastered the 6 basic fears, one of which is the fear of criticism, will have no hesitancy in taking what may seem to be a more convention-based type of mind to be drastic action when he finds himself circumscribed and bound down by antagonistic alliances, no matter of what nature or with whom they may be. It is a million times better to meet and face criticism than to be dragged down to failure and oblivion on account of alliances which are not harmonious, whether the alliance be of a business or social nature. To be perfectly frank, the author is here justifying divorce, when the conditions surrounding marriage are such that harmony cannot prevail. This is not intended to convey the belief that lack of harmony may not be removed through other methods than that of divorce, for there are instances where the cause of antagonism may be removed and harmony established without taking the extreme step of divorce. While it is true that some minds will not blend in a spirit of harmony and cannot be forced or induced to do so because of the very chemical nature of the individual's brain, do not be too ready to charge the other party to your alliance with all the responsibility of lack of harmony. Remember, the trouble may be with your own brain. Remember also that a mind which cannot and will not harmonize with one person or persons may harmonize perfectly with other types of minds. Discovery of this truth has resulted in radical changes in methods of employing men. It is no longer customary to discharge a man because he does not fit in the position for which he was originally hired. The discriminating leader endeavors to place such a man in some other position where it has been proved more than once misfits may become valuable men. The student of this course should be sure that the principle described as the mastermind is thoroughly understood before proceeding with the remaining lessons of this course. The reason for this is the fact that practically the entire course is closely associated with this law of mind operation. If you are not sure that you understand this law, communicate with the author of the course and secure further explanation by asking such questions as you may wish concerning points in connection with which you believe you cannot need further information. You cannot spend too much time in serious thought and contemplation in connection with the law of the mastermind, for the reason that when you have mastered this law and have learned how to apply in new worlds of opportunity will open for you. This introductory lesson, while not really intended as a separate lesson of the Law of Success course, contains sufficient data to enable the student who has an aptitude for selling to become a master salesman. Any sales organization may make effective use of the law of the mastermind by grouping the salesmen in groups of 2 or more people who will allay themselves in a spirit of friendly cooperation and apply this law as suggested in this lesson. An agent for a well-known make of automobile who employs 12 salesmen has grouped his organization in 6 groups of 2 men each, with the object of applying the law of the mastermind with the results that all salesmen have established new high sales records. This same organization has created what it calls the one-a-week club, meaning that each man belonging to the club has averaged the sale of one car a week since the club was organized. The results of this effort have been surprising to all. Each man belonging to the club was provided with a list of 100 prospective purchasers of automobiles. Each salesman sends one postal card a week to each of his 100 prospective purchasers and makes personal calls on at least 10 of these each day. Each postal card is confined to the description of but one advantage of the automobile a salesman is selling and asks for a personal interview. Interviews have increased rapidly, as have also sales. The agent who employs these salesmen has offered an extra cash bonus to each salesman who earns the right to membership in the one-a-week club by averaging one car a week. The plan has injected new vitality into the entire organization. Moreover, the results of the plan are showing in the weekly sales record of each salesman. A similar plan could be adopted very effectively by life insurance agencies. Any enterprising general agent might easily double or even triple the volume of his business with the same number of salesmen through the use of this plan. Practically no changes whatsoever would need to be made in the method of use of the plan. The club might be called the Policy of a Week Club, meaning that each member pledged himself to sell at least one policy of an agreed minimum amount each week. The student of this course who has mastered the second lesson and understands how to apply the fundamentals of that lesson, a definite chief aim, will be able to make much more effective use of the plan here described. It is not suggested or intended that any student shall undertake to apply the principles of this lesson, which is merely an introductory lesson, until he has mastered at least the next 5 lessons of the Law of Success course. The main purpose of this introductory lesson is to state some of the principles upon which the course is founded. These principles are more accurately described, and the student is taught in a very definite manner how to apply them in the individual lessons of the course. The automobile sales organization referred to in this summary meets a luncheon once a week. 1 hour and a half is devoted to luncheon and to the discussion of ways and means of applying the principles of this course. This gives each man an opportunity to profit by the ideas of all the other members of the organization. 2 tables are set for the luncheon. At one table, all who have earned the right to membership in the one-a-week club are seated. At the other table, which is serviced with tinware instead of china, all who did not earn the right to membership in the club are seated. This, needless to say, becomes the object of considerable good-natured chiding from the more fortunate members seated at the other table. It is possible to make an almost endless variety of adaptations of this plan, both in the field of automobile salesmanship and in other fields of selling. The justification for its use is that it pays. It pays not only the leader or manager of the organization, but every member of the sales force as well. This plan has been briefly described for the purpose of showing the student of this course how to make practical application of the principles outlined in this course. The final acid test of any theory or rule or principle is that it will actually work. The law of the mastermind has been proved sound because it does work. If you understand this law, you are now ready to proceed with Lesson 2, in which you will be further and much more deeply initiated in the application of the principles described in this introductory lesson. Your 6 most dangerous enemies, and after the lesson visit with the author. Every person on earth is afraid of something. Most fears are inherited. In this essay, you may study the 6 basic fears which do the most damage. Your fears must be mastered before you can win in any worthwhile undertaking in life. Find out how many of the 6 fears are bothering you, but more important than this, determine also how to conquer these fears. In this picture, you have the opportunity to study our 6 worst enemies. These enemies are not beautiful. The artist who drew this picture and did not paint the 6 characters as ugly as they really are. If he had, no one would have believed him. As you read about these ugly characters, analyze yourself and find out which of them does you the most damage. The purpose of this essay is to help the readers of this course throw off these deadly enemies. Observe that the 6 characters are at your back where you cannot conveniently see them. Every human being on this earth is bound down to some extent by one or more of these unseen fears. The first step to be taken in killing off these enemies is to find out where and how you acquired them. They got their grip upon you through 2 forms of hereditary. One is known as physical hereditary, to which Darwin devoted so much study. The other is known as social hereditary, through which the fears, superstitions, and beliefs of men who lived during the Dark Ages have been passed on from one generation to another. Let us study first the part that physically hereditary has played in creating these 6 basic fears. Starting at the beginning, we find that nature has been a cruel builder. From the lowest form of life to the highest, nature has permitted the stronger to prey upon the weaker forms of animal life. The fish prey upon the worms and insects, eating them bodily. Birds prey upon the fish. Higher forms of animal life prey upon the birds and upon one another, all the way up the line to man, and man preys upon all the lower forms of animal life, and upon man. The whole story of evolution is one unbroken chain of evidence of cruelty and destruction of the weaker by the stronger. No wonder the weaker forms of animal life have learned to fear the stronger. The fear consciousness is born in every living animal. So much for the fear instinct that came to us through physical hereditary. Now let us examine social hereditary and find out what part it has played in our makeup. The term social heredity has reference to everything that we are taught, everything we learn or gather from observation and experience with other living beings. Lay aside any prejudices and fixed opinions you may have formed, at least temporarily, and you may know the truth about your 6 worst enemies, starting with the fear of poverty. It requires courage to tell the truth about the history of this enemy of mankind, and still greater courage to hear the truth after it has been told. The fear of poverty grows out of man's habit of preying upon his fellow men economically. The animals which have instinct but no power to think prey upon one another physically. Man, with his superior sense of intuition and his more powerful weapon of thought, does not eat his fellow man bodily. He gets more pleasure from eating him financially. So great an offender is man in this respect that nearly every state and nation has been obliged to pass laws, scores of laws, to protect the weak from the strong. Every blue sky law is indisputable evidence of man's nature to prey upon his weaker brother economically. The second of the 6 basic fears with which man is bound down to is the fear of old age. This fear grows out of 2 major causes. First, the thought that old age may bring with it poverty. Secondly, from false and cruel sectarian teachings, which have been so well mixed with fear and brimstone that every human being learned to fear old age, because it meant the approach of another and perhaps a more horrible world than this. The third of the 6 basic fears is the fear of ill health. This fear is born of both physical and social heredity. From birth until death, there is eternal warfare within every physical body. Warfare between groups of cells, one group being known as the friendly builders of the body, the other as the destroyers or disease germs. The seed of fear is born in the physical body, to begin with, as the result of nature's cruel plan of permitting the strong forms of cell life to prey upon the weaker. Social heredity has played its part through the lack of cleanliness and knowledge of sanitation. Also through the law of suggestion, cleverly manipulated by those who profited by ill health. The fourth of the 6 basic fears is the fear of loss of love of someone. This fear fills the asylums with the insanely jealous, for jealousy is nothing but a form of insanity. It also fills the divorce courts and causes murders and other forms of cruel punishment. It is a holdover, handed down through social heredity from the Stone Age, when man preyed upon his fellow man by stealing his mate by physical force. The method, but not the practice, has now changed to some extent. Instead of physical force, man now steals his fellow man's mate with pretty colorful ribbons and fast motor cars and bootleg whiskey and sparkling rocks and stately mansions. Man is improving. He now entices where once he drove. The fifth of the 6 basic fears is the fear of criticism. Just how and where man got this fear is difficult to determine, but it is certain that he has it. But for this fear, men would not become bald-headed. Bald heads come from tightly fitting hat bands, which cut off the circulation from the roots of the hair. Women seldom are bald because they wear loose-fitting hats. But for fear of criticism, man would lay aside his hat and keep his hair. The makers of clothing have not been slow to capitalize this basic fear of mankind. Every season, the styles change, because the clothes makers know that few people have the courage to wear a garment that is one season out of step with that they call all-wearing. If you doubt this, you gentlemen, start down the street with last year's narrow-brimmed straw hat on, when this year's style calls for the broad brim. Or you ladies, take a walk down the street on Easter morning with last year's hat on. Observe how many uncomfortable glares you are thanks to your unseen enemy, the fear of criticism. The 6th and the last of the 6 basic fears is the most dreaded at all. It is called the fear of death. For tens of thousands of years, man has been asking the still unanswered question, whence and whither? The more crafty of the race have not been slow to offer the answer to this eternal question. Where did I come from, and where am I going after death? Come into my tent, says one leader, and you may go to heaven after death. Heaven was then pictured as a wonderful city whose streets were lined with gold and studded with precious stones. Remain out of my tent, and you may go straight to hell. Hell was then pictured as a blazing furnace where the poor victims might have the misery of burning forever in brimstone. No wonder mankind fears death. Take another look at the picture at the beginning of this essay and determine, if you can, which of the 6 basic fears is doing you the greatest damage. An enemy discovered is an enemy half-whipped. Thanks to the schools and colleges, man is slowly discovering these 6 enemies. The most effective tool with which to fight them is organized knowledge. Ignorance and fear are twin sisters. They are generally found together. But for ignorance and superstition, the 6 basic fears would disappear from man's nature in one generation. In every public library may be found the remedy for these 6 enemies of mankind, providing you know what books to read. Begin by reading The Science of Power by Benjamin Kidd, and you will have broken the stranglehold of most of your 6 basic fears. Follow this by reading Emerson's essay on compensation. Then select some good book on autosuggestion or self-suggestion, and inform yourself on the principle through which your beliefs of today become the realities of tomorrow. Mind in the Making by Robinson will give you a good start towards understanding your own mind. Through the principle of social heredity, the ignorance and superstition of the Dark Ages have been passed on to you. But you are living in the modern age. On every hand, you may see evidence that every effect has a natural cause. Begin now to study effects by their causes, and soon you will emancipate your mind from the burden of the 6 basic fears. Begin by studying men who have accumulated great wealth, and find out the cause of their achievement. Henry Ford is a good subject to start with. Within the short period of 25 years, he has whipped poverty and made himself the most powerful man on earth. There was no luck or chance or accident back of his achievement. It grew out of his careful observation of certain principles, which are as available to you as they were to him. Henry Ford is not bound down by the 6 basic fears. Make no mistake about this. If you feel that you are too far away from Ford to study him accurately, then begin by selecting 2 people whom you know close at hand. One representing the idea of failure, and the other corresponding to your idea of success. Find out what made one a failure and the other a success. Get the real facts. In the process of gathering these facts, you will have taught yourself a great lesson on cause and effect. Nothing ever just happens. Everything, from the lowest animal form that creeps on the earth or swims in the sea, on up to man, is the effect of nature's evolutionary process. Evolution is orderly change. No miracles are connected with this orderly change. Not only do the physical shapes and colors of animals undergo slow, orderly change from one generation to another, but the mind of man is also undergoing constant change. Herein lies your hope for improvement. You have the power to force your mind through a process of rather quick change. In a single month of properly directed self-suggestion, you may place your foot upon the neck of every one of your 6 basic fears. In 12 months of persistent effort, you may drive the entire herd into the corner where it will never again do you any serious injury. You will resemble, tomorrow, the dominating thoughts that you keep alive in your mind today. Plant in your mind the seed of determination to whip your 6 basic fears, and the battle will have been half won then and there. Keep this intention in your mind, and it will slowly push your 6 worst enemies out of sight, as they exist nowhere except in your own mind. The man who is powerful fears nothing, not even God. The powerful man loves God, but fears him never. Enduring power never grows out of fear. Any power that is built upon fear is bound to crumble and disintegrate. Understand this great truth, and you will never be so unfortunate as to try to raise yourself to power through the fears of other people who may owe you temporary allegiance. Verse: Man is of soul and body formed for deeds of high resolve on fancy's bold wing, to soar unwearied, fearlessly to turn, to keenest pains, to peacefulness and taste, the joys which mingled sense and spirit yield. Or he is formed from abjectness and woe, to grovel on the dunghill of his fears, to shrink at every sound, to quench the flame of natural love and sensualism to know. That hour is blessed when on his worthless days the frozen hand of death shall set its seal. Yet fear the cure, though hating the disease. The one is man that shall hereafter be, the other, man is vice, has made him now. Shelley. End of Lesson 1.